Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my amazing interviews. Today, we're going to be talking about EMF. I made a video, about a month ago now, I imagine, about the electrical magnetic fields, or indeed frequencies, that are all around us, that are on our mobile phones, from some of the towers outside. And when I went to the Better Way conference at the beginning of June, I met a very interesting chap who knows all about EMF. So I persuaded him. I got hold of him and said, you've got to come on the show and tell my viewers all about it. He is Glynn Hughes, and he is an EMF health consultant. Glynn, lovely to have you on the show.
Absolute honour to be on it, Richard. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, this is something that a lot of people have spoken about, warned me about. They said, if you do this, it's going to be dreadful. Watch this video. And I've watched this video of blood changing shape in your hand. And even now, and I don't know whether this is psychosomatic, that if I use my mobile phone in my left hand for more than, say, 2 or 3 minutes, I'm aware that it tingles. And I'm holding the phone on the edge like this, and very often I've got it on a book over here, and I've started to put it on aeroplane mode when I'm not in, when I'm in the air, when I don't want to be disturbed, and I just have it out the way, and I don't take it with me, and I don't put it in my back pocket like you see so many people do. So like so many people, getting a bit nervous about what that does, but then there's all the other frequencies around us that perhaps I'm ignoring. So could you take us through what EMF is, then some of the dangers, and then what we can mitigate to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, what you were experiencing wasn't well, I don't believe it was psychosomatic. The mobile phone industry would like you to believe that.
Right.
Then we can be dismissed as fools who have mental reactions to physical things that don't exist, if you like.
Yes.
But it's not. So, and all of the things that you said there are the beginning of the journey to EMF health, if you like. One of the ways I like to describe what's going on is we've all got an EMF milk bottle.
Right.
Pint bottle. And it's been continually poured into by lots of different things, by radio frequency, dirty electricity, and body voltage. Those are the three particular differing elements of EMF that are relevant to health. And the biggest one of those is radio frequency, which you've touched on with your phone. So you've got your phone, which you could quite rightly should and do switch onto airplane as much as possible. You know, I'm quite famous for being a little bit difficult to get a hold of because it rarely is my mobile phone on, but right. I still one, here it is. It's it's there and it's actually live at the moment, which is unusual for me. So
throw it across the room.
Yeah, get out of here. What's going on, Glynn? What are you thinking about? That would have been awful, wouldn't it? But rung in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So put it on airplane, don't charge it by your bed, etc., etc. These are things that we have control of. So,
yes.
So we can stop the milk bottle being filled up.
So that's an interesting thing, but I think a lot of people will suddenly go, what did he say? Don't charge it beside your bed. I have to say, I've been very guilty about doing it. I tend not to at the moment. I know if Julia's round, shouldn't say this, but she tends to, let her battery run down and it'll be like 3%. So at night time, plugged it in. That's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing to have it near you, and then we get back to, is it on airplane or not? So yes. The other thing to remember is when we do put it on airplane, it's not all gone.
No.
So for example, there's Find My Phone on most modern phones. So you might even switch your phone off.
Oh, I see, and it's still emitting something.
Yeah, and of course there are some theories that certain authorities would like to know where we are all the time.
Yes.
But it may not be true. So it's not always as simple as you think it is. And we put it on airplane and then actually we haven't turned the Wi-Fi off.
Yeah.
Some phones, but that's a good start. So it's, as you can see, really where we're going, it's about education. Let's fully understand what's happening when you put a phone next to or relatively close to your head where you're trying to sleep. So what is happening? Well, if you're charging it and you've left it, got to be ready in case the grandkids call or or whatever. There could be an emergency. So you've left it on. So what your phone is going to do, even though you're not using it, every now and again it's going to say hello to the network, and that's the most powerful signal and thing that the phone does, because it wants to make sure it reaches the nearest mobile phone mast and that the mobile phone mast knows where you are and everything's working nicely. So the sleep process, which is massively important to every human's health, the whole story of how our immune system refreshes, etc., which is majorly important to every part of our well-being, is interrupted by that signal that says hello to the mobile phone mast.
Is it?
So what happens is the pineal gland, strangely enough, which is responsible for a lot of things within our body, including regulating and changing serotonin and melatonin. So when darkness comes, it's the melatonin created by the pineal gland that makes us tired and sleepy.
Right.
And we can go off into you'll see it if you look for melatonin online. You see it is the best natural sleep enhancer. So our melatonin kicks in as it goes dark. The next thing we're off. The pineal gland sees radio frequency as a form of bright light. So the pineal gland, as your phone's sitting next to you by the side of the bed, the pineal gland goes, "Oh, bloody heck, I better wake him up." Now we're not sort of jumping out of bed and going, "Oh, put the toast on, Julia."
Yeah. Every 10 minutes.
Yes. Is that why I keep? No, it's because you're 64.
Yeah.
But it does draw you out of the deep sleep.
Right. Interesting.
So you don't get full immune system refreshment. So there's more to just, I'm charging my phone by the bed than what we think. The other thing it's doing is, as you connect, your electrical circuitry within a modern house carries a thing called dirty electricity.
Dirty electricity.
Dirty electricity. Dirty electricity is a very subtle form of radio frequency. It's a byproduct of modern life that sits on house wiring.
So you mean like on the ring wire that goes around? It's just what it's sending out. Not deliberate, not on a certain set. Well, it would be a frequency of its own thing, but it's not
It's not deliberate.
Not deliberate. It's sort of the natural pulse of 240 volts going around the house or whatever it is, presumably.
Yeah, so it's what the signal that your electricity carries is what we call a 50 hertz signal.
Right, yeah.
If we can see this on the camera, it's a nice smooth signal when it arrives in our properties, or it's designed to be a nice, smooth, clean electrical signal that does that sort of thing, and it doesn't really do that much damage. What happens in a modern house is as soon as it gets in, we tell it to stop. Well, we think what we're going to do it, so it comes into your computer, and your computer has chips in it, and it goes, "Oh, no, I'm not ready for you to yet. Stop there. All right, now go." And that can be on your phone charger, your fridge, your TV. All of these modern appliances tell the electrical signal to just stop a minute while we work out what we're going to do with you. Rudimentary way of putting it, but that's essentially what happens. And what that does is it creates a radio frequency. So that stop does that to the signal,
right,
and creates a radio frequency which transmit the electric and magnetic fields that are around our house into our bodies. So, but they're quite short. They don't travel a long way. But by taking a wire and plugging it into the socket that's probably 5 or 6 feet away, which probably wasn't that troublesome, although it could be better, and bringing it right by our head, we've done several things that we could not do and empty that milk bottle a bit.
Yeah. So charge your phone in another room.
Yeah. And airplane.
Yeah. And I guess buy yourself a wind-up clock.
Yeah.
Well, because if you've got an electric clock, presumably it's doing the same as you've just described.
Yeah. yeah.
Sales of wind-up clocks. I should put a link now to an Amazon affiliate to wind-up clocks, shouldn't I? Whereas millions of people are going, oh right, yeah, we'll buy a quick wind-up one with big bells that shocks the living daylights out of them when they wake up. Nice subtle clock would be good. So no, that's fascinating. There you are. Now I'm going to tell Julia that she'll have to charge her phone in another room. Brilliant.
The only, of course, caveat to all that is, these are quite small things relative to if you've got a 5G phone mast outside your bedroom window.
Right.
And that's when you get into the significantly dangerous things, because that interrupts your melatonin production, but it also messes around. Interestingly, rather, I don't know what the right phrase is, you could almost say demonically, the name of the networks are cellular networks. The big thing that a cellular phone tower does is mess with your cellular system.
Oh, I see. And it's interesting how these names, coincidentally or not, mimic something, and it's that business about being told in plain sight. Or is it?
No, I don't.
Of course, it wouldn't possibly be people telling us that's exactly what's going on. But now that's fascinating. So if you've got a 5G mast, what about 4Gs?
Yeah. I mean,
on different strengths, I suppose.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of furore around 5G. That's the most common area that we get questioned about. And it's important to understand that there are a lot of different types of 5G, and that the 5G networks are quite a bit behind where the operators want them to be or wanted them to be, because of they were going to use the Chinese Huawei.
Right, yes.
And they had to stop that, and that's put them a couple of years back. But the phone manufacturers and networks, which obviously work together, the whole. Before I got involved in this, I was on the other side. I used to work in telecoms, and what we always did in telecoms, we invented something you didn't need, or before you needed it, so we could tell you that what you've got now was obsolete and you needed a new one. and that's what the operators and networks do now. So what they've done is that a lot of the signals that we're receiving in our phones just say, oh, you've got a 5G network, and everybody thinks, oh, I've got this new 5G. No, you've only got the beginnings of it. We haven't got the full effect of 5G yet. So the answer to your question, 3G, 4G, and most of the 5G that is around at the moment isn't that different.
Right. Okay.
But what's coming, there's a sort of a plan to blanket the planet in a level of radio frequency that we've never seen before. And so that is why we should be concerned, but generally speaking, it's not usually there. It is in the cities, in some parts of the cities and some test areas, but mostly if you're in a town or out of the centre of a town anyway, or rural or whatever, then you're not seeing the full millimetre wave, which is the technology that is a bit concerning.
And what sort of time scale would you say would be, say, just in the UK, to cover? When do they think, or is anticipated, that we'll have this blanket of strong signals?
It's another one of those secrets that they don't want us to really know, I think. But you've got to remember, it's a bit like turning a tanker around. And they're on with it, and the laws are being changed, and councils don't have to do things they used to have to do, and the type of antenna needed for the 5G network we don't need the great big towers,
right?
That we've had for 4G, 3G, 2G, and even the analog signal that went before that, because these things are smaller and they cover a much smaller area, but there's going to be millions of them.
Right.
So they're being dotted up. You'll see. If you see the telecoms vans out there, the OpenReach or whatever, they might be working on your broadband, but they also equally might be sticking a lot of 5G antenna up. And
they're not these massive. So they're not these massive ones with great big boxes whirring with fans next door to them.
No, they can put them on there. But the reason they're big and tall and everything, because so a good way to look at it is that they're lower frequency. One way of understanding that in EMF terms is, if you're teenager has got the stereo on and you're out in the garden, then you just hear the boom, boom, boom. You hear the bass,
Yes.
low frequency, but therefore travels further. That's why you're not hearing the saxophone
Yeah.
or whatever. And so the big towers are carrying the 2G, not so much 2G now, but 3G and 4G masts that are quite low frequency will go further. And that's why they're higher, because they want to get over things like roofs and trees and carry on going. The 5G millimeter wave, which is the 5G that's coming, the one that will allow the driverless cars and all the things that may or may not be going to happen in terms of surveillance, etc. Those networks use a very high frequency. It's called millimeter wave. We've never had that before. And we don't fully know the health effects of that because we haven't had that type of signal or that speed or highness of signal, if you like.
Yes.
And so we don't know what that's going to do to health, but equally perturbing is for it to work, they've got to completely blanket the planet or whatever area they want to cover. So this is a long answer to a short question, Richard, but I don't know when it'll be up fully because it's going to take them at least another 3 years, I would think.
Right. And do you need more power to if you've got millions of these little,
are we going to need,
more electricity? Because I mean, we know that we're being pushed towards everything's got to be electricity based, and we have unreliable means, it seems, to generate this electricity, wind and solar, and the nuclear stuff is sort of like being poo-pooed or not really invested in. And coal and fossil fuels and all of that are being extinguished. So if this 5G network is got to have a hell of a lot more power, but at the same time we're all plugging into electric vehicles, and everything in our house now is electrically bloody. I mean, not only have we got to generate all this electricity, but presumably all of this is generating lots and lots of frequency and fields.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat worrying when you think 200 years ago they weren't generating anything.
Yeah, you're right, and it's blanketing the Earth's natural stuff. There is one theory. If you look at the progression of acute and chronic sickness over the last 40 years. So give or take a little bit, the introduction and the proliferation of mobile technology, they actually mirror each other.
Right.
You can look at things like heart arrhythmias, for example. If you look at that 40 years ago, it was something like, I think it was, check it out, reviewers check it out on Google. It's something like 1 in 50,000 people in general, and a bit less as people got older, had some form of arrhythmia. It's now in people over 50, 1 in 7.
Really? Right.
Yeah. Now, if you think about the heart, this is just one particular part of your biology, but you think about the heart, it's working on a radio frequency. And so a subtle biological radio frequency, but it is our whole cellular system communicates with a very subtle radio frequency. So if you bombard that with a powerful signal that can carry your video at that speed,
yes,
that's probably not good. And it could possibly be the reason why we've seen, or at least part of the reason. You can add in all the minerals and lack of minerals, vitamins, the heavy metals, all the other stuff. So it won't be the only thing, but it's interesting that the proliferation of mobile technology almost mirrors the acceleration in chronic and acute ill health. Now, if one of the reasons or a theory, a major contributor to our well health is Schumann resonance, which is the Earth's natural radio frequency. So again, it's another very subtle field. So if that is already being bombarded, as it is, by radio frequency at a less than saturated level, when we saturate it, what's going to happen? But it's you know, and of course, it may be a conspiracy theory, but Big Pharma would like that, wouldn't they?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, you can imagine any for-profit company that will continue to be able to sell its products because, let's say, in the health industry, if you are not well, it's going to be of benefit to them. And if it just so happens by design or coincidence, whatever it is, that you are going to be unwell, they're, of course, able to sell you a solution. But you're a man of solutions because you're a health consultant, and it may be that you don't need pills and things or lotions and potions, that you just need to be perhaps a little bit more aware of what you can do to mitigate some of these frequencies. So Wi-Fi is another thing that we're all using.
Yeah.
And we turn on we get the router thing and we switch it on and we forget about it. And that's just doing its thing day in, day out. And at whim, we can connect to our laptops if they're Wi-Fi compatible, and of course our mobile phones. How dangerous are they?
I mean, if you go back to my milk bottle theory, that's topping it up all day long and all night long if you leave it on at night. And I know a lot of your viewers will be going, "Oh, well, there's nothing I can do about that." That's not true. I don't use Wi-Fi. We're having this interview quite successfully, and there's no problem with my connection or to the internet. It's simply a change of mind.
Yes.
Start,
I'm all wired up here, mainly
yeah.
because I don't like the fact that sometimes Wi-Fi drops out, and if it's hardwired, it makes more sense. And so that's a safer option, presumably. Even though I've actually got tons of wires all around on the floor, nobody wants to look at my floor. They might be radiating up from my.
We could perhaps come and have a look at that. Yeah.
Well, no, you don't want to look at it, but there's plugs and things, because my studio's got camera lights and. But I'm only in here for the duration of this interview, and then it all gets switched off. But the Wi-Fi, yes, the Wi-Fi is on, again, for convenience, mostly for my mobile phone.
Yeah.
Which I suppose I could, and many people could. I know there's a gadget, and I think you were showing me, or somebody was showing me a gadget, which means you can have a hard wire and it will plug into your phone to give you the internet. So you don't need to use the onboard Wi-Fi connection if you're at home and your phone is relatively close to you on your desk, so you can answer it if it rings and all that. Is that a thing still?
You could do that. What I would say is most of us now, whether we like it or not, have 4G signal, and unless we're and many of us sadly are going to have 5G. Once 5G comes, you almost don't need Wi-Fi because the power and the speed of the full 5G networks. Not that we want to be doing that, but prior to that, 4G is usually enough. It's certainly for me, and we live in the middle of nowhere on a hill. Not surprisingly, our nearest phone mast is about 2.5 miles away, but it is a rural one, so we do have a signal, but it's a healthy-ish. Well, none of them are healthy, but I mean, it's better than living in a town.
Yeah.
But it's still strong enough if I need to download something on my phone, and if I need to switch Wi-Fi on, what I would recommend is what I do, which is get control of your own life. Get control of your router. Just learn it. We can send people videos on how to do it, but it's just learn it. Learn your router, and once you've got your little IP address for your router in your browser, you'll click on it, and there it is. There's all the stuff on your router, and you can turn it on and off really quickly and really easily within the software of your router. And once you do that, although actually, you may have to invest in different routers. If you've got BT routers, what they do, you turn them off and they turn themselves back on. Because unbeknown to you, if you've got a BT router, you're part of the BT Wi-Fi Max or whatever they call it.
Oh, I see, because they're using a bit of yours. Yeah, I remember when they sold it to me, that you could, so in other words, you could be somewhere else, and actually you're effectively, now we used to do this when Wi-Fi, I can't remember what we used to call it. It was a very strange name. You'd pull up outside people's houses before people protected themselves. Hotspots and things like that. Yes. It was, there was a strange name that was connected. You turn your laptop on and you'd see which house you could connect it. Not that you were looking in their computer, you just wanted to get the signal. The free Wi-Fi signal, and it was a bit of a game because it was inconvenient. But it was, if you didn't have Wi-Fi and you needed to send a file, and often I was travelling about a bit, and I would have something I needed just to check my emails. I would, coast in the car down a road till you found somebody. But because now mostly everybody's got it password protected, so you can't do that. But so I know what you mean there. So in the router, you can turn it off and then just turn it off and on. But BT made this thing. So
BT routers will, but we have an expert in the other room, otherwise known as my wife Esther, who knows how to do that. So.
Oh right, okay.
You can disable the BT ones as well. They're just a little bit more tricky than all the others. But you can control it, switch it on and off. So you need to download a heavy file, switch it on, download it, switch it off again. The interesting thing is we've got now over 10,000 clients. I've been doing it for a long time, and everybody's poison is a little bit different. So some people are absolutely fine. They can sit around Wi-Fi all day long, and they don't get a headache, they don't feel ill, they don't, and then they can walk into a room with a little bit of dirty electricity and almost keel over.
Right, and I suppose so. On a day-to-day basis, some people will be all right, some people won't. But what about long-term effect? Is that a thing that might worry people?
Yeah, I often say, we have some really sick clients, and so those aside, the ones that our clients can range from people who just get the odd headache to be one of the girls I've worked with for a long time, who are really. Although she's getting a little bit better. When we first met her, she was so sick that her radio frequency allergy had turned into a light frequency allergy, and she had to be in a darkened room 23 hours a day.
Gosh.
So that can be a long term, and we see, if you ever get a chance to interview, there's a lady I'm going to meet tomorrow. There's a lady called Eileen O'Connor, who is probably I think. She's been around even longer than I have. I met a chap called Gerard Hyland, Professor Gerard Hyland, and her back in 2004, and that was one of the things that launched me into this space. But if you ever get a chance to interview Eileen O'Connor, she'll. Where was go? What were we talking about, Richard?
Well, the long-term effects, short-term effects.
Oh yeah. Okay, so. She, back in 2000, I think about 2002, she got breast cancer. I'm actually spending some time with Eileen tomorrow. She doesn't live too far away from me. And she was in the oncology department. She had she and her husband had a really successful business and made quite a lot of money, and they lived in this posh little village. And she was in the oncology department, and she met another person with cancer. And then they got together and they said, well, should we see what the rest of the village feels like health-wise? And so they did, and they went and visited maybe there was 10 or 12 houses or something like this. And there's videos of this online, Eileen telling the story. And almost all the houses they went to had some form of cancer, or one of them had motor neuron disease, some kind of debilitating disease. And when they looked at it, there was a dirty great big foam mast in the middle of it. And then they got some experts in to do some mapping and some radiation measuring, and it was horrendous. Now that's anecdotal, isn't it? But then what happened around that time? I was involved in we were the original Wake people. They were called Seriously Concerned Residents Against Mass, SCRAM. I lived in a place called Southport at the time, and we were called Southport Residents Against Mass. And we did a survey, and there was a mobile phone masts have a thing called a beam of maximum intensity.
Beam?
the beam of maximum
Of
intensity.
maximum intensity, right? Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is, so your mobile phone mast antenna, I'm trying to get my hand right, but will be tilted, where am I? Slightly, like that.
Mm.
And it'll be high up, like we talked about before, and it'll send a signal out over. So you might have a house right next to a mobile phone mast, and that can not be the worst place. It might the beam or the beam of maximum intensity may go over your house because in the network that phone mast is designed to do quite a lot,
Mm.
further on where you are.
Yeah.
So the beam of maximum intensity might go over your house and then it'll land, usually depending on what the mast's doing within the network and the height and blah, 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 blah. But usually between 250 and 500 meters away from the tower is where the beam of maximum intensity will land. So we, using our very rudimentary, back in 2004, this was our very rudimentary equipment, managed to find where one of these beams of maximum intensities lands, because it's where they land that is the problem. So,
And is it like point of sight type thing? You
yes,
can line it up with a,
yeah, you can look at it
yeah,
and
and
oh
see.
yeah, well that'll probably, look at the angle and look at where it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you really need some equipment
Yeah, of course.
to turn that into an electrical reading, which of course we've got.
Mm.
And so we found that one of these, it was back in 2004, it had just been upgraded to 3G, but it was a big, powerful mast covering a lot of ground. But we found where the beam broke ground, or the group did, not me personally, and interviewed the 8 houses that were in the signal. 6 of them had cancer.
Uh-huh.
One of them was empty.
Right. Wow. That's yeah.
Yeah.
So
That could have been something else.
of course it could have been something. The worms probably
Yes.
coughed it up a little bit of something. But yes, but anecdotal evidence isn't full blown evidence, but it certainly gives you a picture to follow, doesn't it? And of course you can't. And if you've got this disease, that's a life-changing thing.
Yeah.
It can be, depending on how progressive it is.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking of other things that are in and around the house. I mean, I've seen pictures. Well, let me go back to the mobile phone, because that's one that a lot of people are nervous about, I suppose.
Yeah.
Especially at the moment where cash seems to be taken away from us in, say, parking, and we've all got to have phones that are now going to do the parking for us, and some restaurants and things won't take cash. So again, it's digital payment on your phone. And Aldi, I think, has introduced a cashless shop. So again, you've got to have your phone, which means that you've got to carry this damn thing, even if you want to be light and just wanted a pocket full of change. And so that becomes, and never mind all the listening ability and all of that side of it, which could turn the mobile phone into a personal tag, as if you're a prisoner, but let's not go down that wormhole. What about young people who are on their phones continuously? Because they're now so, children particularly are on their phones, they're nimble fingers, they're able to, I can't bear typing on my phone. The best thing about the phone for me is the audio thing, where if you're on WhatsApp or one of these other things and you talk into it, and that's great, and that's great, because I haven't got a faff about, because I've only got one eye anyway, and I'm mistyping. But young people, kids, they're on it from so young an age, and they're on these things, they're carrying about them, and they want them on 24/7, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? If you go into the settings of your mobile phone, then into general, then into, I can't remember what's next, but after that, it's legal. You can find the legal section. The manufacturers will tell you to keep your phone I think it's 5 centimeters away from your body. And the reason that I suspect they do that is it will give them something to hook onto should you sue them for a form of ill health. So even the manufacturers of the phones tell you not to get too close to it effectively. I think centimeters is probably too close for my liking, but yeah, I've got young kids. I've got 7 kids.
Have you?
Yes, I have.
You've got too much time on your hands.
I have, haven't I? I need to get a new television or something.
Yeah.
Um, and they range from some quite little ones to 38. And they're all you know, for all the parents out there, you know, I feel for you because you can't stop it.
Mm.
It's just too big a battle, and we all lose, particularly for an old parent like me. You know, we lose the energy for it, and so we do. I am concerned for the future generations. I really am. I think that the positive thing is that most kids don't hold it to their heads because they're looking at it all the time.
Right.
But you know that.
What about the earbuds and things? I see people, they're talking to the phone here, and they've got an earbud in there. Is that radiating into the ear?
Well, it depends how bad it is. One of the worst things you can, and I've done some experiments and some using measuring equipment with the buds that are wireless. They're lethal.
Right.
That's literally like having two mobile phones attached to your head all day long.
Oh my, yeah, yeah.
The same goes for the Bluetooth headsets.
Right.
Because they're looking for a signal all the time, even when you're not using it.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I'm listening to you, but this is wired in, and it's just audio. There's no signal.
That's better, but more ideal is so it's a product that we're going back into selling. We don't sell it at the moment just because we're distracted with other things. But there's a thing called an air tube headset.
A what tube?
Air tube.
Air tube.
Yeah, as in air that we breathe.
Oh, air. Sorry, yeah. No, it's your lovely accent.
Thank you.
It's a lovely lilt.
So what that does is it takes the electronics to a point where it stops, and then the sound is transmitted via air to the ears. So it helps the brain, which is, you know, that's you know, again, you know, if you're to look at.
Is that the same thing that you see in presenters on the television? Because I've had earpieces on the television, and it's a tube. There's no wires in it.
Yeah,
and somewhere down, you know, connected to your thing is the end of this tube, and it's a bit like the doctor's stethoscope.
Yeah.
It comes up there. There's no wire, and yet you hear perfectly because it's just. I suppose it's a very tiny version of the old ship's engine room, full steam ahead. That sort of thing, is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
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 Oh, interesting. That's really interesting.
And then if you watch the films with the spies and the special forces, they've all got them, haven't they?
Yeah.
Not a double one. It's usually just one, so you can hear somebody shouting "duck."
And that's an air tube.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So that's better, but the problem with that is it does still, because there's the wire from your look, what we're talking about here is what do we need to make all this stuff work all the time? An antenna.
Mm.
What are antennas made out of?
Wires. Yeah.
So the wire that you've got plugged into your phone that you then hook into your brain is carrying the signal from the phone to your brain. It's a much lower level than if you hold the phone. So what you're doing is better. You know,
this is connected to my computer on just the audio app, like as if I was just listening to music. It's not connected to a phone. So
Okay.
there's no Wi-Fi in the computer. But if I was doing this like with you now, plugged in, and I know that that acts as an antenna, so you're at the other end of it, radiating. You know, your head is slowly cooking slowly.
But it's important to say to people, I don't want to put people off doing this in case they go for something worse.
Right.
So none of this is ideal, you know, and I'm always looking for nirvana and never find it.
Mm.
So people, I would encourage people, your viewers, to get air tube headsets. And I'm not trying to push anything because at the moment we are planning to start stocking them. We just lost focus on it because we do so many things. So I'm not trying to sell them.
No.
But I don't want them to stop, you know, using the wired headsets and go to something more dangerous. Please
no, the
don't.
Bluetooth one. I mean, I think that's quite frightening because I think a lot of people sit and play their computers doing that because then they're free and they're not going to knock anything.
Yeah, and your kids, you know, if your kids are not using the phone, they're probably gaming with wireless.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. So really, the answer I think so far that we've come up is switch to Morse code, and there's old-fashioned and you'll be perfectly, as long as your telegraph pole's not right outside the window. But no, but this is, I mean, it is quite scary that you think, okay, I won't do that, and I'll put on these Bluetooth ones, and you haven't thought it through that, as you just said, there's two signals constantly having to be in communicate by Wi-Fi, and it's the convenience thing again that gets us.
I think the answer to all this is education. You know, we're of course don't want to become the mainstream media and the industry that profits from this do not want us to know any of the detail. Because any of the detail is going to lead to too many uncomfortable questions for them. So the education of what we can do and how we should behave isn't out there. And we can live in this world. We just need to take a little bit of time, learn a little bit, like we have today.
Yes.
You know, as hopefully, Richard, you'll leave this and say, yeah, I'm going to change one or two things that I do. That's what my main motivation to be here is to, well, I hope it is anyway, is to wake people up and see people have more healthy lives and get people to think. The problem is, when you go on the internet, and I meet it all the time, look, people come to me and say, oh, we've just employed somebody to come around to our house and they've said this and it's clearly wrong. Can you help me? I said, well, no, because I haven't been to your house.
Yeah.
There's so much misinformation out there. But we can do our best and we can learn.
We're gonna talk about your health academy in a second and find out what that's all about. Before that, it just occurred to me, because my dad used to make aerials for a living. That was his job. He would make all sorts of marine aerials, communication aerials. He made aerials for life jackets back in the 70s, that if you fell out of an aeroplane or it crashed or something and your life jacket inflated, inside that was an aerial that just sent out a beam, a pulse every minute or so that people could find you, hopefully, before you get eaten by sharks or whatever.
On films, yeah.
And so he was in that sort of zone, and I used to help him as a young man, is sort of 8 years old, come in there wiring, putting these aerials together and all sorts of different things. And the one thing I remember him telling me was why things like television aerials, not that he was in the television aerial thing, but although he used a lot of the same technology, he would use coax cable. And the thing about that is it had a screen to stop the signal from escaping on the wires.
Yeah.
And presumably that's something that we don't see on headsets and cabling these days on the domestic phone thing, because it's quite bulky. But presumably that sort of screening is reducing the signal being emitted.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that feeds Esther and I and the kids. You know, we provide materials and clothing, and the big thing that we see the most success with is we have a thing called a bed canopy, which is made out of a fabric that's coated in silver. Believe it or not, the thing that shields most effectively against radio frequency is silver. It's quite interesting.
So you've got, I mean, effectively, it's a sheet that covers like on a four-poster.
It is a four-poster, yeah. It comes with a frame, and you put your frame up over your bed, and then you go in, and the pineal gland is relieved of its
so you can get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. So there's lots of things you can do. There's clothing. Whenever I go out in the car, I always wear clothing to protect the organs and mainly the heart and the lungs and the liver and the kidneys.
So let's just dispel a couple of myths then here, or they may not be myths, or things I've been told before we move on. Some people say if you're in a metal box and you take like a car and you take your phone inside that car and it's got its Wi-Fi, it's got its 4G on and all of that, that actually it's amplifying the signal up, and so it's more dangerous to do that. Is that true?
Yes. So me
driving in my van, my transit van, which is all metal all the way around, no plastic.
That's good. That if you've not, if you switch your phone onto airplane and you make sure the van's not transmitting the Bluetooth looking for your phone,
yeah,
and because it's a van, then the windows will allow them, because motorways are just full of foam mass.
Yes.
So you can. So I'll tell you an interesting thing that I do. I don't know if you know this, but most cars from 2016 will have this thing called an SOS system in them.
Right.
Okay. And what it basically is there's a button somewhere that I've never remembered. I can't ever remember where they are. I'm always changing my car. I'm a bit of a car person. And there's a button somewhere, and you can press it if you're in trouble.
It must then send out a beam, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I bet you could get 100 of your viewers on today and say, how many of you know what to do?
Yes, I'll have to ask Jeff Buys Cars if he knows where it is.
Yeah, he probably won't.
Yeah. In fact, I will ask him. I'll ask him after this.
And so you then start to ask, I wonder why we've got that.
Yeah.
Now, it's all the time, because what it does is every time you see a new phone mast, it sends a powerful signal out, because it may or may not be telling somebody, perhaps an authority,
where you are
or where not you are.
Yeah. See, there's this flip side to everything, isn't there?
Yes. And that's that. And I have mine taken out of all my cars because I don't want the radiation, but I don't want to tell anybody where I am. Not that I'm up to anything nefarious, but
no, but it's your own business, isn't it? Where you are. Why should anybody else have it? And no, that's very interesting. So, but within a steel box, I mean, some cars, of course, are no longer metal. You know, there's a lot of plastic, or there's fiberglass or glass fiber. And so you're not. But if you, I guess that was the question. If you've got it on inside a metal box, is the signal bouncing off the metal and actually doing more damage than if you then turn everything off? Or is it? Does it act as a ground plane?
To some degree, all of because what you're talking about is the principle of radiation shielding.
Yeah.
Because this is a radiation. You've got to remember that it's a microwave radiation. The official term for the thing that connects us all is non-ionizing pulsed microwave radiation.
Non-ionizing.
The only difference between that and a nuclear bomb is ionizing.
Right. Okay? So glad it's non-ionizing.
Yeah. Well, hang on a minute though.
Good.
I'm good. All of you, sorry about this, Richard.
We're going to explode. Go on.
So there are guidelines that, those that perhaps don't agree with me or watching this will say, oh, yes, Glynn, but what about the ICNIRP guidelines? We're all safe because we're in the government ICNIRP guidelines. Well, let me explain to you what the ICNIRP guidelines are and where they came from. So back in the mid-'80s, as these networks were being rolled out, and I will answer your question about the
It's all right.
Back in the mid-'80s, when these networks were being rolled out along the motorways, and then we started to build them in the towns and all that. You're a similar age to me, I think, so you might remember when we started to get them, and you could get them up the M1 a little bit, and then it disappeared again, and all that. Well, the government called in the operators, the phone operators at the time, and said, somebody mentioned that this stuff might not be safe.
Yeah, you can imagine. A minor clerk comes up. I wonder... perhaps this isn't safe. What are you talking about? Don't be silly. It's a whole new innovation. It's going to be fantastic. But is it safe?
Money. No, sorry. No. Sorry, Richard.
It's all right.
And
the truth will out.
Yeah. The conversation, I believe, went something along the lines of, well, how do we find out if it's safe? And the operator said, well, we don't know. And the government said, well, we don't know. And you better go out and find out if it's safe, to the operators. So they contacted the Ionizing Radiation Protection Board. So the people who could measure the effects of Chernobyl.
Oh, crikey.
Or Summerfield, yes. And said, could you help us? Because we want to prove that this is safe.
Yes.
Whether it is or not, it doesn't really matter. We just want to prove that
we want to know whether it is or not, and then we'll tell the public what we want to tell the public. But
anyway, that's it. Yeah. So they came up with this test that was a thermal test.
Yeah.
So it's still used today by almost all of the governments around the world. It was developed by the British. Surprise, surprise. And it's whether or not, and actually even in this is the foam mass, but it's lower level for your phone. Whether it's safe or not, or how safe it is in their, I don't agree with it, but in their world, depends on a thing called a specific absorption rate test, which is a test that they do. I've been involved. In fact, there's a picture of me behind me where I'm working on one.
Oh yeah.
Just above my head, and it tells you how much your brain is being heated up or not by the phone held to it. That's for your phone, but for the network, it's much higher, the levels that are allowed, and it's a thermally, i.e., a ionizing consideration as to how safe it is. So it pays no attention to non-ionizing, which is the biological effect.
Oh, I see.
So there are no tests for health into the biology, only whether or not we're heated up or not.
So the recommendation from what you've just said then is, if you're driving your vehicle, for God's sake, keep off the motorways.
Yeah, well, we've got
stay on the B roads.
Yes,
take a nice longer scenic journey, but don't use your sat nav, because
that's a different thing.
Well, I was just saying, the sat nav on your phone, which then relies on Bluetooth to connect. Use an old-fashioned sat nav.
Yeah.
Which would be a bit safe. I mean, it's like, so many of these old things that or use a map. Yeah, paper map.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, paper map is not going to hurt you unless it accidentally flies up in your face and you can't see where you're going.
Yeah, you crash. Yeah. So, but to answer your question, if you generate stuff within your vehicle, with your van or your car, then it will mostly dissipate through the windows.
Right. It's not banging. It's not pinging off the metal and effectively warming up your brain and sending you to sleep at the wheel.
Well, I can make the claim. Since what happened 3 years ago, there's many people been accused of being tin hat wearers. Well, stealing my thunder, because I was one of the originals, and so you can put a little hat on your head and it's just going to bounce off what's coming in from that direction. It's not going to accelerate what's coming in from other directions. It'll work. Ideally, we wouldn't live in any of it, would we? But
no.
We have to. Then what we've got to do is, we can't get rid of all this completely, but we can try and minimize it.
So actually wearing a tin hat is actually quite healthy.
Yeah, we have a lot of people do it. People's lives changed. You mentioned the lovely Julia. We met at the conference. I think we might have given her a hat.
Yeah.
And because we did give a few out, and we have people that just do that and feel a massive difference. Now, of course, the industry would accuse us of what you mentioned right at the beginning of this chat, that it's all psychosomatic. It's not. It's reducing the overall effect. Well, we have hoodies. We sell hoodies, and I wear hoodies when with shielding inside. And we were doing quite a long motorway drive, Esther and I, a year or two ago. And whenever I'm doing that, I always wear this stuff because I don't feel too well if I don't. Could be psychosomatic, I don't know. But I was driving along, and I said to Esther, I said, headache. She looked at me. She said, "Well, you haven't got your hood up." And I put my hood up, and with a short while it had gone. Now, I could be in my imagination.
So the material, like the drape in your bed, it's woven into the material. We're not talking about the sort of Second World War ARP tin hat, although that probably would work quite effective, but might give you a headache because it's so damn heavy. Which is a slightly different thing and make you look slightly weird, but it would do the job. That's really interesting. So let's move on to the academy that you are running and find out what that is and if people are interested to join. Yeah,
it's been my passion since first get it. Well, no, maybe not first, but at least 15 years. Because it's much better now, the way people react to me than they did 15 or nearly 20 years ago. I was considered to be the tin hat wearer, but as I went round, I've quite a passion for kids being healthy, and I have seen a lot of sickness in children that I believe is caused by electromagnetic fields in various forms.
Right.
And so, and you've touched on the subject when we talked about kids today and what can we do about their obsession with the radio frequency, etc. But that has been a passion of mine to educate people, parents, kids themselves, just general humans, to live a better and healthier and safer life. There's been so little knowledge, I could never really get to the point where I felt I could get it off the ground. But over the last few years, as people have woken up to so many different things, our whole world is what we do with my company, or with Esther and my company, has changed, and in a really positive way. But the negativity have been, we just can't cope. So all of a sudden, of course, when things changed 3 years ago, and there was a link with 5G and what was going on, then the phones just went crazy. And we were getting friends to help us, transmitting phone calls anywhere, and it has quieted down and smoothed down a little bit, but we can't, what we're doing now, hopefully this is educating a lot of people. I hope it is.
I hope so, yeah.
Giving me space to do that. But we can't do this on a one-to-one basis. Can you imagine if I try and do this one?
I mean, and we said this before we started recording. I mean, I know what it's like just running a YouTube channel, and people want to ask you questions, and with the best will in the world, there's more of them than there are of me, and hours in the day free to answer emails because I'm making videos and what have you. So I imagine that in your position, and a lot of the questions are probably very similar or the same question that could be answered more effectively in a different way.
Yeah. So it drove us to the place where we finally said, yeah, okay, and because we try to invest what comes into us back into the cause, if you like, and so we had just about enough money to develop the EMF Health Academy, where over a period of 10 months, it's one night a month. And we like to call it the acute community as well, because what we're doing is we've attracted, we can't name names in most cases yet, but there's a number of other experts joining me. Some of them you will have met at the conference in Bath. So it's mainly EMF, but we're looking to educate first people on EMF and the health effects of that, from sort of, can you measure it? What's happening in my house? What's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, and then taking them on a journey over 10 months from no knowledge to being able to live a much healthier. We're never going to be EMF free in this crazy world, but an EMF lesson, if you like, bring the milk bottle down for them over a period of 10 months. So we're going to cover things like protesting and how you should be quiet about this really, but how you can try and stop the phone masts from going up. Maybe a little bit, not in my backyard, but if we all did that, then
no, absolutely. I mean, if it's not healthy, we want to protect ourselves, and that's got to be a human right to protect yourself from anything that's going up. And I know the price of angle grinders are going down, but anyway, just sort of slip that in. But one's got to protect oneself however you do it, because we only get one crack at the whip. So where can people find out more information about the Health Academy?
On our website, that's EMF, surprisingly enough, -protection.co.uk, and along the top is the button to hit, and it's all there. There's a taster session in July that's free.
All right.
We charge you £40 a month for the course because we need to, because we've got staff to pay, etc. But that's about the minimum we can get away with. But for people to get a feel for whether that's something they want to get involved in, they can go on the website and say emf-protection.co.uk. You'll see on the top bar the academy.
And I will put a link in the description, so make it nice and easy and convenient for everybody to go to your website, and then they can have a hunt round and get loads of answers, no doubt.
Brilliant, yeah.
Questions. No, the other way around. Loads of questions answered. That's the way it works. That's really cool. What one thing, if we had to take away one thing from this very, which on the face of it might, to some people might seem very complicated, but if they would take away one thing that we should perhaps improve, we could do immediately, and I'm immediately thinking of the not charging your phone by your bed type thing. Is there another one thing that you would just say, if you did one thing that will really make a difference?
Switch your Wi-Fi off when you're not using it.
Switch your Wi-Fi off when you're not using it. That's very good. Well, coming to the end of this interview, I shall switch my wife off. My wife, sorry, I haven't got
No, no, don't do that.
No, don't switch your wife off. Make sure you get this right. Wi-Fi, not
Yes,
wife.
that's the
I
one.
don't actually have a wife as yet.
No.
I switched the old one off. I'm digging myself now. I'm going to
Oh
get
no,
huge
come out of
complaints.
there.
Yeah, we got amicably separated, and then we got divorced. For anybody who wants to know that, and that was years and years ago. And I have the lovely Julia in my life, and very happy and content. But it's your Wi-Fi that you want to switch off. That was what Glynn was recommending, nothing else, to do with marriages and things. So, Glynn, thank you so much for talking to us. A very enjoyable conversation on a very serious, of course, subject, and lots of pointers in there. Do go and check out Glynn's website for more information and the academy, and hopefully a few people will join up and carry on with the good work. Have you got? Do you do many exhibitions and things like that where you present your wares and your ideas and stuff?
Not too many. I really enjoyed the World Council for Health thing in Bath, so we're planning to do more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it would be nice. It was great fun to see and to put on the tinfoil hat. Well, it wasn't tinfoil, was it? Of course, it was
Yeah.
a proper hat. So well done to you.
Yeah.
There we go. From lovely Glynn Hughes, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. I'll be back with more monologues and interviews coming up. Do check out Glynn's website, emf-protection.co.uk. Links in the description. Glynn, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Until next time, from Glynn and I, goodbye.
Thank you, Richard, and goodbye to all your lovely watchers.
Thank you.